This is my cheap and wrecked Indian Chief, and this is the ride command. And today we're going to plug this in, and we're going to see all the little diagnostics information that the bike has. Because up until this point, we've been, turning the bike on, doing work to it without any indication of error codes or mileage. So the ride command sits right in there, and when you're using things like cruise control, doing media playback, navigating through the menus, all of that shows up on this screen. And of course you get information like, your speed, diagnosis codes, but Scout owners have been wanting something like this for a long time. And other than, the big touring models, the FTR is the only of the bikes that have something like this. When this bike is complete, I will be giving it away to one of my supporters of the channel. So if you want to get in on that, you can head over to BrandonBicasso.com, get you an entry. And when the bike is done and this series is complete, we're going to be giving it away to somebody. It's going to be hard to part ways with this bike. I'm already attached to it, but yeah, it's going to happen. I'm sure some of you are wondering, why is this little screen so important and why can't we just ride the bike on the street without it? Well, you could do that, but you're not going to be legal. So for you to get a bike registered, or at least get a tag for a bike, in this case, this bike it doesn't have a clean title, you have to know what the mileage of the motorcycle is. You can't even get a non-wrecked motorcycle, get a tag for one without the mileage. So this screen will relay us that information once it gets the data from the ECM. And also it's gonna give us information like engine codes, diagnostic information. It also has it shows you the startup pin so you can start the bike without the key fob. Also, there's current power mode settings, whether or not cylinder deactivation is turned on. It shows you whether or not cruise control is activated. It shows you the status of the ABS. It also shows you the GPS and navigation. So this little screen gets so much information from the other systems on the bike. So yeah, you want to have this, but first and foremost, you cannot, we can't get the bike on the street without knowing what the mileage is. So we're going to plug this up and see how many miles the bike has. So like I did in the last video, we already have the one cable that's necessary to get this work plugged in. I'm going to plug the other end right there into that little plug right there. And we do have two more cables that are going to plug into the back of this. This is the USB cable, and also it's going to be the GPS antenna, but we're not going to use those. All right, so we're going to plug that right in that little plug. This is the key fob for the bike. I'm actually going to sit this away from the bike so you guys can see what the pin code information looks like on it. All right, press this. Power, one cable. You guys can see there, it's asking for the pin code. Contact dealer for passcode help if you don't know what it is. And it's also showing that we don't have the key near the bike. And when I bring the key near the bike, that little symbol, it goes away. So now let's see how many miles the bike has. 6,400 miles. I'm actually surprised that the bike has this many miles on it, and that's not a bad thing, but miles do tell, a story about a motorcycle, but you don't know the full story because you weren't there for all of those miles. But, somebody could have bought this bike and put the miles on it, or it could have been a demo model that people were constantly riding and somebody bought it. But what we do know is that whoever was riding it, they wrecked it and it ended up being totaled out. So, we know that the bike has 6,400 miles on it, and that's really not bad, but there's more information in this ride command, so let's dig through it. All right, so we got the screen here. I do want to show you guys what happens when you press the cruise control button. See how that lights up over there? Cruise control. The ABS light is on because the bike isn't in motion. Once it gets over, I think 5 miles per hour, that cuts off. We have the gas light on because obviously there's no gas tank on the bike. Let's turn that off, and there we go. Also, when you hit your brights, let's do that again. Bright symbol turns on. Really cool, right? And also this little button right here, start flipping through the different screens. Pretty cool. So as you guys can see, we are currently in sport mode. So the bike, I have not changed the power mode. The bike was still in sport mode, so that kind of gives us an idea of what the person was doing before they wrecked the bike. We got ride, range low. I would hope it's low. Speaking of low range, I still remember one of the most fun videos that I had on the Chief, and that was when I had a Super Chief and I did a range test where I filled it up and rode it all the way till empty. And
yeah, that was a very interesting story.
So we got VIN number, model number, software number, but interesting enough, it says next oil change is 0. Huh, well, what's going on with that, right? So we got display, Bluetooth devices, all this good information. But where the information really turns to take a spin is under oil life. You also can see that we have cylinder deactivation turned on as well. So that basically chops the cylinder off, the rear cylinder, turns it off when you're sitting at the stoplight to help with heat management. And also this is where we would deal with the password, like putting the pin code on the bike. So let's hit diagnostics. There's no error codes. Oh, there is edge codes. There's plenty of them.
I didn't think we had any diagnostic errors, but apparently we do. Let's check those out.
All right, so apparently we have 4 of these, and the first one says, engine control module, front right turn signal. So we have 4 of these, so more than likely we don't have either of the front turn signals or the rear turn signals connected. So I'm assuming all 4 of these involve the signal lights, and it seems that that's exactly what that is. So if that's the case, there's no issues with the bike. So we're gonna go to oil life and service. Oh, there's that big red message. Overdue by 5,900 miles. So basically, after it said Indian Motorcycle recommends the first oil change after 500 miles or 12 months.
It says that the bike is overdue for an oil change by 4 months or 5,900 miles. And the bike has 6,400 miles on it. So that means that the bike, or at least the bike, hasn't had an oil change since 500 miles. Maybe the person did the oil change themselves. Who knows? But we do know that the oil life indicator was not reset. So that could mean that the person that had the bike did it themselves, because most dealers are gonna go through a checklist and do that themselves. So I don't know, but what we can do from here is either let it ride and assume that, hey, if they change the oil at 500 miles, then that means they're supposed to change it at 6,000, because I think it's every 5,000 miles, or we can let it ride till 10,000 miles. But we did check before that the bike does have oil in it. There's no issues with the bike running, no ticking, no weird stuff like that. But we can either change it or let it ride till 10. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think about that down below. But that was an interesting surprise, because when you get wrecked bikes, you kind of get it as it is. You don't get a chance to really dig deep into the diagnostics codes of the bike in most cases, because a lot of them don't power on. But now that we have this screen, we can see all of that information. And now we know what actually is going on with the bike. So not really that big of a deal, but it is a deal, but it's not a big one. Other than the legal aspect of this, the reason I got this is because without this screen, this is the reason why many people get the Chief Dark Horse. This bike is less of a Chief Dark Horse without this screen. But from a design perspective, I'm very glad that Indian made this where the information is not stored on this screen, because some people ask me whether or not the mileage was stored in this, because if it were, I wouldn't be able to ever get it, because it wasn't on the bike when I got it, so I would never technically get the mileage of the bike. It would start at 0. So having the information being relayed to the screen, you can always just get another one. But what's even more important, again, is that the bike can run without it. So the idea of right to repair, where cars and bikes and farm equipment, they're so jam-packed with tech to make them run more efficiently and have more consumer features in them. Like motorcycles, you got ABS, traction control, cruise control, music control. There's so much technology in this bike. And if everything lived or died by this screen, that would be really a hard pill to swallow. So if somebody would have steal this off the bike, you could still get home and operate everything on the bike. You just won't be able to see your mileage. So when you look at this from a design perspective, it's a good thing that while this thing is so jam-packed with tech and is so advanced, there's really nothing like this on the market right now, especially in its class. You're not super reliant on it. But I wanted to get this because if I didn't and I went with the regular speedometer on the base Chief, we wouldn't get all the fancy features and also all the technology in this bike, like the cell module and the ECM that's specifically for this. It would all be wasted. If you remember, I told you guys that the ride command, and just like many other things in the world, it was on back order. But I found this one the only one in the country that wasn't on back order by, researching. So let me explain how that actually went down. This started with me ordering a bunch of parts to fix Chief, and the Rod Command was included in that. And with all the delays, basically they were holding all of my parts waiting for the Rod Command to come in. And eventually I just told them, hey, give me the parts that I paid for and I'll just wait for the Rod Command to come in and then just send it in. They were literally holding my parts for $8 worth of shipping extra for the Rod Command. So they shipped me my parts, and I would check every few weeks and say, hey, is the Rod Command in? Is there an update? And they say no. So it went from weeks, then it went from like May into June, and then June they say, oh, it's now July. And then in my head I'm thinking, I'm never gonna be able to finish this bike because I need to know the mileage. So I didn't know what to do. So the way I even found the Rod Command, so when you look at the Rod Command on Indian's site, it says unavailable, meaning basically they don't make the part anymore and you can't order it. So what I did, I took that part number and I put it into Google, and it led me to this dealer where I made this big order. On their site, it didn't say unavailable. So I didn't even know this whole thing about it being back ordered. It didn't say unavailable, it didn't say out of stock or anything. So it was a bit misleading. So I took that part number later on after the order was already made, I'm waiting on Rod Command, and I put it into Indian's site, and come to find out, there's two different part numbers. So the part number on Indian's site didn't match the one that was on the dealer. So when you put that part number into Indian's site, the one that I got from the dealer, it says out of stock online. So they changed the part number and never updated the website. So why is this important? So I've already been waiting for the Rod Command 2.5, maybe 3 months at this point. Well, if you put that part number into Indian's site, it gives you this thing called the dealer locator, and it lets you know whether or not a dealer has the part. And Rod Command, it had one that said limited availability. So what did I do after already waiting? I gave him a call. I called up this dealer on a Tuesday and I said, hey, Indian's website says you guys have a Rod Command in stock. I want it. And he says, oh yeah, we have that. And I said, oh my God, can you actually put your hands on it? I swear to you, I said that. And he said, yeah. So he literally had it in his hand on the phone and he said, I can ship it out to you today. And I was like, holy crap. And what's crazy is that he said the reason they even had it in the first place is because they did diagnostics tests on a Chief in 2021, and they only had it for they only used it for like 5 minutes. And he said rather than send it back to Indian, he put it on the shelf and said one day somebody might need it. And lo and behold, that somebody was me. I can't make this up. But what's crazy is that I waited months from a dealer that didn't even show that thing was on back order on their site because they wanted you to order from them. And I waited months and I paid $800 for that Rod Command. And I got this one in 2 days. They got it to me that Thursday and I only paid $700 for it. So of course I went and got my money back from the other dealer, but I saved $100 and I got it in 2 days. And all I had to do was research. So we learned a lot here, that if Indian's site says there's limited availability, there's a good chance that they probably had it. And to not trust a dealer's, parts locator on their site if they said that they had it. So that is the story, and that is how I got this Rod Command. The only one that's not on back order in the country. That's a hell of a story, right? Having the Rod Command gave us insight into the story of this bike. The mileage, the diagnostics codes, the oil life on the bike, possibly what happened when the rider went down on this bike. The bike was still in sport mode. There's a lot of little nuggets in that screen that's being relayed from these computers that we can finally see. And also it's good to know, again, right to repair. This bike is really actually easy to work on outside of, I guess, you digging into the electrical parts of the bike, but having everything right there accessible without taking too many body panels off, all of that matters when it's, coming to working on the bike. But next up, we have to fix the GPS, because as of right now, I had to fix the Fakra connectors on the wiring harness, and I actually bought the wrong connectors. So on the other end of the GPS is purple. It's a Fakra D connector. Kind of find out it's actually a Fakra C connector on the other end. I bought another D thinking, oh, purple. No, it's purple blue. So I gotta actually get another one of those. But we are on our way to getting this installed. Really, there's nothing stopping me from just slapping it on the bike now. So that is really good to know.
Like I said before, when this bike is done, it's safe to ride, it's legal to ride, I'm going to be giving it to one lucky supporter on the channel. So just by you guys buying stickers, that allows me to continue to do this.
Rebuilding wrecked bikes is a lot of fun and it costs money. But I really enjoy doing it and I like educating you guys, and also me. I'm learning as I go along, how these bikes tick. But if you want to get in on that, you can head over to BrandonBicasso.com by clicking this little card right here on the screen and get entered to win. The entries are limited. And if you're new here and you want to catch up on the series, you can click this playlist right here and watch that. But as always, thanks for listening to my story, and thank you for everybody for supporting this series up until this point. And if you're subscribed, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.